Hey everyone, welcome to the PCS-Proof Podcast, where we're covering the vital things you need to know to thrive in every season of military life. I'm your host and milspouse fitness expert, Grace Barnick-Damazo, and I encourage you to join me each week as we dive deep into topics like fitness, wellness, and entrepreneurship as a military spouse so that you can maintain your own sense of identity and purpose, conquering every transition with strength and resilience. As we journey together, you can expect uplifting conversations and insights. We'll share some laughs, and you can count on me to keep it real so that together we can become truly PCS-proof. Now let's get into it.
Hey y'all, welcome back. I just returned a few days ago from a softball tournament in Yokosuka, Japan at Yokosuka Naval Base, and my voice has still not fully recovered. It's a little bit lower than usual and a little bit raspy still. I call it my radio voice, so you get to enjoy that this week. And before I jump into the main topic for this week's episode, I just wanted to give you a short little recap of my first softball tournament for the season and a few of my thoughts. And just as a heads up, this episode might be a little bit longer than normal. I've been wanting to share this topic with you for a while, and I've been spending a little bit more time on it because it's an important one. So bear with me. If you're out on a walk while you're listening to this, get ready to get a few more steps in. You're welcome. As a female athlete, it's so normal to just get used to being unrecognized or shortchanged. There's less funding, less sponsorship, fewer opportunities for careers, and fewer opportunities to play beyond high school or college level. That's just the unfortunate truth. But I still see so much value in sport and in athletics for women. And this last weekend just made me so proud to be a female athlete. Getting to spend 4 days with a group of women, some I knew, some I had just met, laughing, working hard, trusting each other to do your best, and learning from each other. That's so special. No ego, just giving your best effort for yourself and for your teammates. And I realized on the second or the third day that I had not thought about what I look like or what my body looked like for the entire weekend. And I think that's a really significant thing as a woman. Even as a fitness expert and a health coach, I'm confident enough to admit that I still have moments where I experience those intrusive thoughts about my body. But I think that's what makes me a great coach for women I work with, because I can really understand and empathize with them about how they're feeling. But we women are subjected to constant images of what a perfect body is and how we should look, how we should dress in order to be considered professional, attractive, desirable. It comes from everywhere. Social media, within the military life, outside in real life, right? It comes from all directions. So to spend even just one day being free from all of that and instead to be recognized for being a good teammate, for being a good member of the military community, for giving your best effort, for having integrity, it really just hit me how important sport and athletics are for girls and for women. I know that athletics were a massive reason that I overcame an overweight childhood and my insecurities about my body as a young woman, and that has stuck with me as an adult. And for that reason, and many others, they are worth our support. Whether they'll receive the investment and the recognition that they deserve, time will tell. It's definitely getting better, but by no means is it where it needs to be. But they are still so valuable and worthwhile of our support and our participation. I've mentioned to you in the past that softball is one of my stable rocks, that thing that grounds me and helps me to manage the chaos and anxiety of life, and especially military life. It is a form of self-care for me. I know that sounds kind of weird because physically, my body is feeling pretty beat up. I'm bruised, I'm sunburned, I'm scraped up, I'm sore. My throat is raspy from cheering and laughing, and I'm still trying to catch up on my sleep after a week. But inside, I feel alive, I feel happy, and I feel inspired and lit up to keep improving. I can't wait for the next tournament. Today, I wanted to explore with you this topic of self-care. Specifically, I wanted to talk to you about expanding our ideas of what is typically considered self-care and shifting our concept of self-care from instant gratification to activities that offer delayed but greater benefits for our long-term health. Living the military life can be incredibly challenging. We need to find moments in our busy, chaotic schedules for self-care. It's really a non-negotiable if we want to attempt to keep our sanity. So I have a question for you. When you think of self-care, what are the top 1 or 2 things that come to mind? What's your go-to self-care activity? Is it a long hot bath? Is it cuddling up with a good book and a cup of tea? Going out with your friends for dinner and drinks? Going to get your nails done or your lashes or your eyebrows? Or maybe it looks like a glass of red wine or a cocktail after a hard, stressful day. Or reaching for your favorite sweet treat, candy, chocolates, cookie dough as a reward for making it through a shitty day. Maybe it's choosing to pick up dinner from a fast food joint because you had a long day and you just don't have the energy to cook. Or sleeping in to get that extra hour of sleep instead of going to the gym. These are all good, viable options, by the way. I've done most of these myself. How many of you listening, when I asked you what your go-to self-care activity was, listed something like going to the doctor to get your lab work done because you've just been feeling a little bit off lately, or making an appointment with your therapist to talk about that stressful week, taking the time to prepare some nutritious meals that will give you the energy you need to handle the busy week ahead, or even making it a priority to go to the gym so that you feel more strong, confident, and capable in your everyday life. I could be wrong, but I'm going to guess that those were not the things that came to mind, right? It was probably something like the first list, something in that realm, not the second. It's easy to turn to quick fixes for stress relief. Grabbing that extra glass of wine after a tough day, indulging in comfort food, or splurging on a spa day. I get it. I do. Those of you who've listened to my early episodes know my story and know that I worked in the wine industry for the better part of a decade. And it was out of the ordinary if I did not have a glass of wine or 2 or 3 after most work nights. While these activities do provide immediate comfort, they often offer only temporary relief, and that's not at all bad. Like I mentioned at the top, we women in military life need ways to manage the stressors. One of the definitions of self-care is the practice of taking an active role in protecting one's own well-being and happiness. Today, I wanted to discuss why true self-care requires a complete approach, one that focuses on both the instant gratification in addition to options that require delayed gratification for lasting well-being and self-care.
Hey, fellow milspouse. Ever felt the frustration of being forced to restart your fitness routine every time military life throws you a curveball? Whether it's a PCS, a deployment, or a short-term assignment, disruptions can make progress feel nearly impossible. But now there's a solution designed just for you. The PCS-Proof Fitness Program from FitPath Coaching. Designed by a woman in military life, for women in military life. It's flexible, adaptable, and affordable. No more setbacks or starting over, just steady progress on your terms. Visit fitpathcoaching.com/PCS-proof-fitness to start your journey today. And as a special offer for our podcast listeners, get your first month free with promo code POD4FREE. That's POD, the number 4, FREE. Say goodbye to stress and frustration and hello to a stronger, healthier, happier you with PCS-Proof Fitness. Join us today and get ready to conquer any challenge military life sends your way. PCS-Proof Fitness, join today.
Do you remember those cute videos that were circulating on the internet a while back? The ones where the parents were testing their kids' self-control by placing them at a table with one of their favorite treats in front of them. And they were either told that the parents needed to leave the room for a second and they instructed the child not to eat the treat, or they told them not to eat the treat, and if they don't, then the child will be rewarded with an extra treat upon the parent's return. These videos were actually a really cute variation on one of the most famous studies on self-control. This study is known as the marshmallow test by Walter Mischel, showing that there's a direct correlation between the amount of self-control a child showed in the study at the age of 4 or 5 and their success decades later in life. The study showed, it was a long-term study that was started in like the 1960s, and it followed these children into their adulthood. The children who were able to withstand indulging in eating the treats the longest had higher SAT scores and better social and cognitive function in adolescence. And at age 27 to 32, those who had waited longer during the marshmallow test as a preschooler had lower body mass index and a better sense of self-worth. They pursued their goals more effectively and they coped more adaptively with frustration and with stress. And they followed them even longer. At midlife, those who consistently waited, they delayed their gratification versus those who couldn't, those who ate the treats quickly, were characterized by very different brain scans. And those brain scans showed links between addiction and obesity. It's pretty crazy stuff, right? And since the 1960s, when the marshmallow test started, there have been so many more studies that continue to bolster this correlation between delayed gratification and improved health outcomes. So this is my first reason why we should start expanding our idea of what self-care can be. This direct correlation between engaging in less instantaneous self-care activities and your long-term positive health outcomes. Choosing long-term health-promoting activities over immediate pleasures sets us up for improved, not just cardiovascular health, but better weight management and reduced risk of chronic diseases. For example, opting for going to the gym 30 to 60 minutes a few times a week after work, instead of spending a sedentary evening, provides sustained energy, mental clarity, and far outweigh the fleeting comforts of spending 5 hours in the evening on a Netflix binge. So my suggestion to get started with this is to think about incorporating small, manageable changes into your routine. So try taking a morning walk with your kids or preparing your healthy meals in advance. Schedule regular checkups. And you can even double up these efforts with an instant gratification self-care option. So one of those from the top list we were talking about, those instant gratification, those instant fixes, you could actually double them up. So for example, you could reward yourself with a pedicure at the end of a week when you completed all your planned workouts. Or make it a priority to include a sweet treat after your healthy dinner each night. These small steps can lead you to significant health improvements over time, and you still get that instant hit of positive feedback that will make you feel more likely to do that behavior. So my second reason for why we should expand this idea of what self-care is that by practicing delayed gratification actually strengthens our mental resilience and our self-control. One study in the Journal of Health Psychology found that higher self-control is associated with healthier behaviors and lower rates of obesity. I always remind my coaching members that the most important days to show up at the gym are the days that they least want to be there. By reinforcing to our brains that we can do things even when we don't want to, we're breaking down this big wall that used to hold us back, that like huge brick wall that requires so much energy to get over. Every time that we do that thing that we didn't want to do, it lowers the wall. It just takes off the top bricks and keeps breaking down that wall, making it easier to keep doing it. And that makes us feel like we don't have to rely on motivation to get us to work out. We can do hard things. And in fact, there are more recent studies that focus on the specific area of the brain called the anterior mid-cingulate, don't quote me on how that's pronounced, cortex, the AMCC, which works alongside our prefrontal cortex. And our prefrontal cortex is the part of our brain that is responsible for decision-making and emotion. And this connection showed increased activity in that AMCC part of the brain when we do things that we specifically don't want to do. In other words, you can think of this part of the brain as the willpower zone. And the research that's coming out is showing that you can actually grow that AMCC like a muscle by performing tasks and activities that are hard or undesirable. Those things that we don't want to do and we still do them activates that AMCC, that willpower zone of the brain. So there's actually scientific evidence showing that by doing these activities that we know they're good for us, but we just don't feel like they're fun or desirable, that this can actually build our mental toughness needed to stick to our health and fitness goals long term, especially amidst the challenges of military life. And this resilience helps us to manage stress, adversity more effectively. And that sounds a lot like self-care to me. How about you? So one easy step that you can start to take to activate your willpower zone of your brain is to identify one single thing that you've maybe been avoiding or feeling resistance to. Maybe it's making an appointment with your doctor to get your lab work done. Maybe that's it. Or maybe it's limiting your alcohol intake, if that's for you. Or maybe it's just showing up to the gym. Hopefully just the fact that you know that there is a fairly instantaneous reward for doing that hard thing or for resisting those temptations, that activation of that willpower zone of your brain, that will help you flip the script in your mind and start to implement more of the long-term health activities into your daily and your weekly routine. Additionally, incorporating mindfulness practices like meditation or journaling into your daily routine can also be beneficial for this. These activities help you become more aware of those impulses and those resistances and teach you to manage them more effectively. So it makes it easier for you to prioritize those long-term benefits over the immediate fixes, the immediate pleasures. And for me, therapy has been another way of doing this. Therapy for me, when I first started going, was I knew I needed it, but I'm like, this isn't going to be fun. This is going to be really hard work. But keep going, and it takes time, but the rewards are just so amazing. And I know that they're going to last me for the rest of my life. So for me, that's an example. Maybe for you, that's something that you want to consider starting. Maybe that's the thing you're resistant to. Highly recommend. My third and final reason for having this discussion about talking about longer term self-care options versus the shorter term ones only is that by focusing on delayed gratification, it actually leads to sustainable lifestyle changes. We've already talked about a few studies, but there are so many more. Feel free to just do a little Google. All these studies are so fascinating. These studies that are done in kids and how it impacts the rest of their lives. Quick fixes and fad diets might offer immediate results or short-term results, but they're often really short-lived and can be detrimental, really, in the long run. A meta-analysis by Hager et al. In the Health Psychology Review emphasized that self-regulation positively influences diet and exercise habits. Among other things, this is a big reason why contestants from shows like The Biggest Loser have a very hard time maintaining their results after the cameras stop rolling and they're sent home to their normal lives and normal stressors. Sustainable lifestyle change takes time. I know, it's annoying. We can't always have the result that we want right away. I wish it were different. As a fitness professional, wouldn't it be great if I were able to get people the results they wanted tomorrow or in the next 4 weeks without any long-term repercussions? That would be amazing, right? I'd probably be filthy rich. But I know that it's my job and my ethical duty to not just get my clients the results that they want in the short term, but also to set them up for success for the remainder of their life, decades after we work together. So we focus on implementing small, manageable steps, building habits, and then adding the next layer of steps. And by committing to these gradual, consistent improvements, we build sustainable habits, healthy habits that lead to lasting benefits. And I know that this is not an easy ask in a world that is getting flooded with these new trendy weight loss drugs promising that you can lose an unhealthy amount of weight in a very short period of time, as long as you ignore the fact that you will also need to adjust your diet in order to see those unrealistic results and deal with the long list of side effects. But that's a whole nother podcast episode in and of itself. However, I am urging you to stay the healthy course. Set realistic, incremental goals for yourself and your health journey. Instead of aiming for drastic changes that you can't maintain and still enjoy your life, focus on small, manageable steps. For instance, aim to incorporate 1 additional serving of vegetables into your daily diet or add a few minutes to your daily walk each week. These small, consistent changes can accumulate into significant long-term success. Okay, so we're not just focusing on the micro, we're focusing on the macro, the rest of your life. Shifting our healthcare habits from instant gratification to activities that offer delayed rewards is a necessary evolution for our well-being, especially in the demanding context of this military life. It's like making a deposit into your TSP every time you choose to forego the instant reward and opt for investing in your long-term health. By focusing on the long-term health benefits, enhancing our self-control and our mental resilience, building our willpower zone in our brain, and committing to sustainable lifestyle changes, we can transform our lives in really meaningful ways. They might not be instantaneous, but they are meaningful nonetheless. Embrace the power of delayed gratification and watch your health and your happiness soar. So keep getting those nails done. You can still fit in that shopping spree or that Netflix marathon. And also, let's make room for and expand our concept of what fits in the category of self-care. You are so worth that investment. Thank you again for joining me for another episode of the PCS-Proof Podcast. Are you following us on Instagram? In addition to being able to ask me all of your burning questions through Spotify, you can interact with me in a more direct way by messaging me on Instagram, either at my personal handle at GraceBFitness or at PCS-Proof Podcast. Either one is great. Thank you, as always, for helping me continue to spread the word about this podcast. I really appreciate you guys sharing this with other women in your military life, in your communities, and for leaving me 5-star reviews on this podcast. That really helps to spread the word to more women in military life who need to hear this content. And if you have a story about how you PCS-proofed part of your fitness, your life, your health, your career, I really want to share your story with the rest of our audience. So head over to the website, fitpathcoaching.com/PCS-proof-podcast. Scroll to the bottom of the page and submit your application to join us as a guest on future episodes. I really want to hear from you, and I want to help you share your story. And with that being said, have a great week ahead. Go seek out some long-term self-care for your health. And I hope that you remember that no matter where in the world military life sends you, together we are PCS-proof. Adios.
And here is the legal language. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to replace professional advice. The views expressed in this podcast may not be those of the host or fitpathcoaching.com. Moreover, we are not responsible for any losses, damages, or liabilities that may arise from the use of this podcast.